Shalom and welcome to the Light to the Nations channel. In this video tonight we will continue with the part number 3 of the study of the last days, a timeline of the end times. In the part number 1 of this study we covered an important question that all of us needs to make to ourselves about why so critical to be alert. And we saw directly from the word of YaHuWaH how YaHuWaH himself is instructing us that we need to watch at all times, that we need to be sober, that we need to be alert, that we don't have to be worried about everything that is in our life, the worries of the life, because this can take the attention on where we really need to put the focus, that is in his malchut, in his righteousness, and to understand that what is everything that is happening around us. So the invitation from YaHuWaH himself is that we need to be on the light, because being on the light we will know when everything is going to happen. We will understand the times and the season, and this is not going to find us as the rest of the world in darkness, that we saw directly from the scripture that he will come as a thief in the night. But if we are in the light and we understand the time and the seasons, it's not going to happen to us that he's coming as a thief in the night. We will know when everything is going to happen. And we saw in the part number 2 as well how to find the proper interpretation for the prophecies. We talk about the Ruach, the spirit of the prophecies, and we understood directly from the word of YaHuWaH that the witness of YaHuWaH is the spirit, the Ruach of the prophecy. And we also saw that the witness of YaHuWaH in his own words is throughout the entire scripture from Bereshit, Genesis, until Chazon, Revelation. So we need to use the word of YaHuWaH to understand the prophecies. And we saw also the warning on the words of Kefa, that any prophecy or no prophecy at all needs to be done with private or own interpretation. We cannot use our thoughts, we cannot use our own assumptions, we cannot use our own ideas, our own conceived ideas. We need to keep all of that aside and just rely on the word of YaHuWaH and his truth in order to find the proper interpretation. Every time I have been telling you, every time that we use our own thoughts, our own ideas, we go astray and we are not able to find the truth of the word of YaHuWaH. And we need to put our trust only on him and the Ruach HaKodesh in order to find the truth. So now that we already laid all the foundation with these two important parts of the study, we are right on time in order to start reading the prophecies and start building the timeline with the sequence of events. I want you to keep that in mind. We are not trying to understand each one of the symbology, each one of the prophecies. In this first part, that is going to be a long series of parts of this study, what we are trying to achieve is to understand the sequence of events. Only that. We are trying to understand the sequence of events and the signs that will help us to understand when those events are going to happen. We are not trying to understand each one of the details of the prophecy, because this is for that will require a lot of time. We will try to do it for sure at the end of the study. But the first point that we want to achieve with this study is to understand the sequence of events. And we will see actually in this part, the part number 3, why it's so important to understand the sequence of events and the signs. Because if we don't do that, we are going to be in darkness. And if we are in darkness, we have a huge risk to be deceived. So we will, as I said, we will start in this part analyzing the prophecies, and we will start building this timeline that is going to help us to have in a visual representation the sequence of events. Okay? As always, if you have any question after the study, after this video, you can send me an email to lightoeverynation@gmail.com, and I will do my best to help you answering these questions. And if I don't have the answer, we will work together and we will pray together in order to find the answer directly from the word of YaHuWaH. And as I have been telling you in the last videos, my invitation for this video as well is that you take your scriptures, you study with me in this moment, you read along with me the scriptures, because that's the only way that we can find the truth and we find the proper food we need for our beings. So let me share the scripture with you and we will start right away. So the part that we will study today is the part number 3, and we will start this timeline reading the prophecy at the Mount of Olives. This is analyzing the words of Yahushua HaMashiach as it is written in the book of Matthew. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24. This is an important prophecy that Yahushua gave us about the end times, and we will analyze the sequence of events based on the words of Yahushua. So let's move on. So we will read Matthew. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, from the verse 3 to the verse 31. Matthew 30, book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 3 to 31. As I have been telling you in other videos, I'm using the translation from the Institute of Scripture Research called the Scriptures. So what you will see in the screen is that translation. Time to time I change some of the words. For example, heaven I change it for Shamayim, and Sabbath I change it to Shabbat. So, but the core translation I'm using is the scripture from the Institute of Scripture Research. If you're having another translation, don't worry. The important here, more than the translation, no matter that we will see maybe some differences, the important thing is that the core message delivered by Yahushua himself, that's not changing. So that's the important thing to keep in mind. Okay, so let's start Matthew chapter 24, verse 3 to 31, and it says the following. And as he sat on the Mount of Olives, the taught ones, the Talmidim, came to him separately, saying, Say to us, when shall this be, and what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? So keep this in mind, and that's why I put the first statement and the first question here in red. The Talmidim, the disciples, are asking 3 important things, and we will be focused just in the 2 later part of the question, because those are related to the end times. They're asking what is the sign of his second coming, and they are also asking what is the sign of the end of the age. So all the answer from Yahushua from now on is related to answering this important question. So everything that he's saying to them and also saying to us today is related to how to identify the sign of his coming and the sign of the end times. So let's continue, verse 4. And Yahushua answering said to them, Take heed that no one leads you astray, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and they shall lead many astray. So we see the first thing, and this is quite important in the way that Yahushua is starting his answer. Take heed that no one leads you astray. We need to take heed all the time. We need to be watching at all time, and we need to be prepared that in order that no one lead us astray. And the only way that we can accomplish this is understanding prophecies, understanding the sequence of events, understanding what are the signs for those events. And the most important thing, keeping our trust only in YaHuWaH and His truth, His Devar. If we put our trust in other people, we are in danger to be led astray. So, important to keep in our heart, in our minds, the words of Yahushua, that we need to be prepared in order that no one lead us astray. Let's continue in the verse 5. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and they shall lead many astray. And you shall begin to hear of fightings and report of fightings. See that you are not troubled, for these have to take place, but the end is not yet. So he's telling us that we don't have to feel worried. All of this needs to happen, but it's important what he's saying. The end is not yet. This is something that we are living today. We are hearing every day about fightings, about potential wars, and things like that. We need to understand, based on the words of YaHuWaH, that this needs to take place, but it's not the end yet. Let's continue verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign. This sounds familiar to you? For me, it sounds familiar. It's something that we are hearing nowadays, a potential war, right? So put attention on what's happening in your day to day. Put attention on what's happening in the world today, and understand all of those events on the world today under the light of the prophecy, under the light of the Ruach of prophecy, under the light of the witness of Yahushua, the Devar of YaHuWaH. And there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases, and earthquakes in places. And all these are the beginning of birth pains. You see, this is just the beginning. And this is again the important key that we also saw in the first part of this study. We'll talk about this more in details later. Verse 9. Then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you. You see, the next sequence of the next events after this is tribulation, persecution. This is important to keep in mind and understand when it's going to happen and how and why. So then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. We are going to be hated because of him, in the same way that the world hated him. It's going to hate us. He talked about this, and it is written in Yohanan. I think it's in the verse 16 or 17. Let's continue, verse 10. And then many shall stumble, and they shall deliver up one another, and shall hate one another. Can you imagine such a division that is going to happen? Then they're going to deliver up one another. They are going to hate one another. And we will see later in another part of this study, even that our inner circle, our families, our relatives, our friends, are going to be against us. So the important question to ask, what is going to cause such a division? It's important to ask that question, because we need to see and we need to understand what is going to cause this. Because understanding what is the cause of this division is going to help us to understand what is the stand and what is the side we need to keep. We need to put our stand and make our stand for YaHuWaH. And understanding what is the cause of the division is going to be much easier to understand how to make that stand. Okay? Let's continue in verse 11. And many false prophets shall rise up and lead many astray. This is during the persecution and the tribulation. He's talking about that. 12. And because of the increase in lawlessness, the love of many shall become cold. This is also talking about the period of the tribulation and persecution, but it's also, we see it happening nowadays, the increase in lawlessness in the entire world, in our society. And that's why the love of many is becoming cold, and we know what's happening when we become cold. This is written in Jason, Revelation chapter 3. Verse 13. But he who shall have endured to the end shall be saved. This is the amazing promise. That's why we need to endure until the end. And this good news of the reign shall be proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nation, and then the end shall come. So the good news will be completed. It will be proclaimed to the entire nation, to the entire world, during the period of the tribulation. This is important to understand it in that way, because YaHuWaH is talking about the tribulation in this moment. And only after then, the end shall come, not before. Verse 15. So when you see the abomination that lays waste, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, set up in the set apart place, he who reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in YaHuWaH flee to the mountains. So, all of these verses until the verse 22, actually the verse 23 and 24, is talking about the Great Tribulation. In this part 3 of the study, we won't cover in details about the Great Tribulation. This is gonna come as part of the part number 5 till part number 9, if I'm not wrong. So we will cover in great details about the Great Tribulation, that period of time, just to understand the sequence of events. But never mind. It's important to mention this. If you have not read the book of Maccabees, please go take it and read it, because as I told you in other studies, in the part number 2 of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua, and also in the part 1b of the calendar study, we saw through Antiochus Epiphanes during the period of the Maccabees in Israel how the first fulfillment of the prophecy of Daniel came to pass. How through Antiochus Epiphanes the fulfillment of this prophecy happened, the first fulfillment. So if you want to have a glimpse and insight of what's going to happen at the end of times, you have to read this book, because you will have amazing information that it will help you to understand the end time prophecies. So this is the book of Maccabees. Go and read it. Also, you can check the videos that I already told you, the part number 2 of the death, burial, and resurrection of Yahushua, and also the part 1b of the calendar study, in order to have a summary of what happened during that period of time and what's going to happen. This is a foreshadow. What happened on that time is a foreshadow of what will happen on the end times. Okay, so let's continue. So in the verse 16, then let those who are in YaHuWaH flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not come down to take whatever out of his house. And let him who is in the field not turn back to get his garments. He's talking that we need to flee, that we need to hide ourselves, especially those who are in YaHuWaH, because such a tribulation is coming, such a persecution is coming, that we need to hide ourselves. And actually, we used we talk about this in the part number 2 of this series, when I was giving you an example on how to use the witness of Yahushua about protection during the last time. And we saw in the book of Yeshayahu, Isaiah, in the chapter 26, how YaHuWaH is telling us that, go my people, close the door, hide yourself until the displeasure, the wrath of YaHuWaH has passed. So we see it here as well, that Yahushua, he's telling us, when you see this sign, flee, hide yourself, go away. Don't worry about anything that is in your house. Don't worry about any value or anything, any material thing that you have, any goods, anything that you can have. Go and flee. Go hide yourselves. Again, we will talk more in details in the next videos about the Great Tribulation, okay? So let's continue, verse 19. And woe to those who are pregnant and to those who are nursing children in those days. And pray that your flight does not take place in winter or on the Shabbat. For then there shall be great distress, such as has not been since the beginning of the world, until this time, no ever shall be. And I want you to take note on this and keep it in your mind and in your heart. The verse 21. Because this is a key in order to unlock the events and the prophecies as well. He's talking about such an event that has never happened in the history of the world. This is a unique event. And it's important to understand it like this, because we will see also in other parts of the scripture that is talking about also about an event unique in the history of the world. So it cannot talk about the same uniqueness of event and those events are totally different things. If the scripture is talking about an event that is unique in the history of the world, he's talking about exactly about the same event. So this is key in order to understand, in order to synchronize and harmonize the scripture. It's going to help us to have an open view of the full picture, of the big picture of the prophecies. So keep that in mind. It's important to understand that this great distress is unique. It's an event that has not happened in the history of the world. So let's continue verse 22. And if those days were not shortened, no flesh would be saved. And listen to this very carefully. But for the sake of the chosen ones, those days shall be shortened. So he's talking about a distress, a great distress, unique in the entire world of humankind. And who is going to be part of that period of time? The chosen ones. You see? And because of the sake of the chosen ones, he is going to shorten the days. So it's quite important to understand that in the words, in the witness of YaHuWaH, he's talking and he's telling us that the chosen one are going to be part of this period of great distress in the human history. Okay? And again, we saw that we need to use in the part number 2, that we need to use the Ruach of the prophecy. And the Ruach of the prophecy is the witness of YaHuWaH to understand the prophecies and the sequence of the events. So YaHuWaH himself is telling us that the chosen one here in the verse 22 are going to be present during the great distress. Verse 23. If anyone then say to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there, do not believe, for false messiahs and false prophets shall arise, and they shall show great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, again, if possible, even the chosen ones. So we see that YaHuWaH is repeating and confirming again the same understanding. And we don't need to have any interpretation here, because it's straightforward what YaHuWaH is saying, that the chosen one even can be deceived by these false prophets and false messiah because of the great wonders and signs that they're gonna make. So, and also it's important what he's saying in the verse 23. If anyone then says to you, look, here's the Messiah, or there, do not believe. We don't have to believe anybody. I have been telling you, we don't have to believe men or women. We need to believe only in YaHuWaH and his word, his devar. That's why YaHuWaH in the verse 4, as we saw here, is talking. The first thing he said, take heed that no one leads you astray. Because during this period of time, many false messiahs, many false prophets are going to arise, and they're going to start leading astray the people. Even they're going to try to deceive the chosen ones. So we need to keep this in mind in our heart. We don't have to believe anybody, only YaHuWaH, and test everything under the light of his word. Let's continue in verse 25. See, I have forewarned you. See, YaHuWaH is forewarning us. So we need to take heed, we need to listen to his words. 26. So if they say to you, look, he's in the desert, do not go out, we need to hide ourselves. Or look, he's in the inner room, do not believe, we don't need to believe, we don't have to believe anybody, only to his words and to the Ruach HaKodesh in our heart. Verse 27. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines to the west, so also shall be the coming of the Son of Adam be, the Ben Adam be. So we will talk more in details later in the other part of the study about the sign of the Ben Adam. But this is critical, it's a key to understand how it's going to be his sign. Okay, it's being compared with the lightning. This is quite important. Let's continue with the verse 28. For wherever the dead body is, there the vultures shall be gathered together. And listen to this in the verse 29. And immediately after the distress of those days. So when it's going to happen? Everything that we are going to read from now on is happening immediately after the distress of those days, not before. Immediately after the distress of those days. So what's going to happen? The sun shall be darkened, the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the Shamayim, and the powers of the Shamayim shall be shaken. And then the sign of the Ben Adam shall appear in the Shamayim. So we see, first we will see a sign in the luminaries. And after that we will see the sign of the Ben Adam appearing in the Shamayim. And let's continue. And then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the Ben Adam coming on the clouds of the Shamayim with power and much steam. And only after that, it says in the verse 31, and he, YaHuWaH, the Ben Adam, shall send his messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the Shamayim to the other. So we see how the sequence of events has been described by YaHuWaH HaMashiach. How after the great distress, the sign on the luminaries, after that the sign of the Ben Adam, and after that he's sending his messenger to gather the chosen ones from the four corners of the earth. So we will put all of this again in a visual representation just to make it easier for us to see it and understand the chronology of events and the signs that are marking each one or kicking off each one of the events. So as we saw in the account of Matityahu 24, we will see that there are some events that are happening on the Shamayim, and we will put all those events in the upper part of the slide. And there are other events that are happening on the earth, and we will put all of these events in the lower part of the slide. It is very important to keep this differentiation because it's going to help us to understand the sequence of events. Some things are happening on the Shamayim, and other things are happening on the earth. And we will put in this arrow here the sequence of events, starting with from the left to the right, with the first events on the left and going to the right. So if we take a look again in the account that we just read on Matityahu, we will see that the first event that YaHuWaH is talking to us is in the verse 5, and he's saying that for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and they shall lead many astray. So many prophets or many people are going to come saying, I am the Mashiach, and they are going to start leading astray many believers, even chosen ones. Okay, this is the first event that YaHuWaH is talking to us. Then he's talking in the verse 6, he's saying, and you shall begin to hear of fightings and report of fightings. See that you are not troubled, for this has to take place, but the end is not yet. So we will hear about fightings and report of fightings, but we need to understand that the end is not yet. Okay? And this is something that has, as I told you, that we are hearing every time, and since the last 2 to 5 years ago, we have been seeing and experiencing how the reports of fighting are increasing and increasing every day. Okay? Then in the verse 7 it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and reign against reign, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places. So we see that the next event is going to be nation going against nation and reign against reign. And you see, I put this in question mark because every time that I read this, for me it sounds like a world war, and it is somehow amazing how the reports or the news about the potential World War III is in the mouth of everyone in the last 2 years, and we have been seeing how these issues in the world scenario and the geopolitical scenario is increasing every day, and the probability for a big scale war is increasing amazingly. So somehow every time that I read this, nation against nation, this is for me is talking about a war between different countries. So it could be, that's why it's in quotation mark, maybe a big war, maybe not a world war, but a big war between important countries in our modern era. Okay, Also the scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes. You know, I live in a place that we used to have earthquakes most of the time, and I can tell you my own experience that during my lifetime I have seen in the last few years that the earthquakes are increasing and increasing, and all the countries, all the places that are around the ring of fire. If you don't know what the ring of fire is, go ahead. You do your research. You will understand what I'm talking about. So all the places that are in the ring of fire, we will see that in the last few years the earthquakes are increasing in frequency and in magnitude. So this is an important sign and an important fulfillment of what YaHuWaH was saying as well. Okay? So important to keep that in mind. So then we see that in the verse 8 he's saying, and all of these are just the beginning of birth pains. So we see that everything of this is related just to birth pains, and this is a key, as I told you. He's comparing all of this to a pregnancy. He's comparing this to a birth. So we know that during a pregnancy, the contractions are increasing in frequency and in pain, are more painful at the end. So if this is talking about just the beginning of birth pains, what's going to happen at the end, just when the baby is going to get born? It's going to be much more complex. So it's important to understand the analogy, because also, as I said, this is going to be a connection to understand the other prophecies. So after this, he's saying in the verse 9, then they shall deliver you up to affliction and kill you, and you shall be hated by all nations for my name's sake. So we see that here is the moment after this, after he's saying the beginning of the birth pain, in one moment in the timeline is going to start the great distress. And all of this that we read from the verse 9 till the verse 24, as we already saw, is talking in details about the great distress. And you know, we will talk about this in later in the study, that this period is also called in Yirmeyahu. This is Jeremiah chapter 30 verse 7, the time of Jacob's distress. This is something that we will study later as well. Okay, so we also saw in the verse 21 that is talking about that the great distress is a unique event on the history of the world. Okay, so if we continue in the next event that we saw during the period of the tribulation, in the verse 14, it says the following: and this good news of the reign shall be proclaimed in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end shall come. So during the tribulation, many things are going to happen. We see the false prophet will arise, the lawlessness is going to increase, there are going to be persecution, and they are going to deliver each one up one another. They are going to hate. They are going to hate themselves between them. So we will see many things. We also see about the abomination of desolation and many things. But since we're gonna study more in details about this in the next part of the videos, I want just to refer now about this verse 14, that he said that during the persecution, during the great distress, the good news, the Besorah, will be proclaimed in all the world. So this is something that is going to happen during the great distress. And you know, we will see this as part of the study, how this is going to be fulfilled. Okay, but it's important to keep this in mind as part of the sequence of events, because those are important events that will help us to understand the big picture about the chronology of events. Okay, so but he's also saying that the end is come. So when this happens, when the good news are proclaimed to all the world, just now the end will come. So that's why it's so important to understand how and when this event is going to happen. Okay, so now if we jump to the verse 29. After Yahushua is describing all the events during the great distress, he's saying, and immediately after the distress of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give its light, and the stars shall fall from the Shemayim, and the powers of the Shemayim shall be shaken. So we see that in one moment the great distress will be completed, and in this moment, immediately after, he says, the sun and the moon will be darkened, the star will fall to the earth, and the Shemayim will be shaken. And this is something that is going to happen on the Shemayim. That's why we have it here in this part, in the upper part of the slide. So this is a sign, an important event that all of us will see it, because also we saw that the chosen one will be part of this. It is written, and we saw it already. So everybody, all the world will see this sign. So this is an important event, an important sign that will help us to understand what is coming next. Okay? And this is amazing because, it's something that I think nobody of us have heard about it and have experienced this. It's a kind of earthquake in the Shemayim. It's a skyquake, if I can call it like that. So it's going to be the Shemayim moving. And we will see how this is being described in Yeshayahu and in Revelation, in Hason. It's important to keep that in mind. So we see that in the verse 30, and then the sign of the son of Adam shall appear in the Shemayim. So we see only after this, as we talk, the sign of the Ben Adam will appear on the Shemayim. Okay? And if we continue reading the verse 30, it says, and then all the tribes of the earth shall mourn, and they shall see the son of Adam coming on the clouds of the heaven with power and much steam. So when we see the sign of the Ben Adam in the Shemayim, the entire world will see him coming on the clouds, and they shall mourn because they know that Yahushua is coming, and they know what's going to happen, how he will destroy all the reign of the earth, and he will establish the Malchut HaShamayim. It's going to be the moment of our restoration. Okay? Let's continue. And he shall send his messengers with a great sound of the trumpet, and they shall gather together his chosen ones from the four winds, from one end of the heaven to the other. So we see, and the description of this has only one statement to explain. He's talking about the final harvest, the harvest of the earth. So it's just in this moment when the Ben Adam will send the Malachim, the messengers, with the great sound of the trumpet, and he's going to gather together all the chosen ones, not before. Okay? So if we see the different events, the different sequence here, we understand the main events, the main signs that Yahushua is giving us, with the main topics that we need to understand, and the sequence of each one of them that's going to help us to uncover and discover and unlock the entire prophecy of the end times. So later on the study, we will keep using the same timeline with these events that are already saw in the book of YaHuWaH, in the words of Mashiach, and we will be including different aspects here that will help us to see the full picture and understand the different sequence of events from a great scale, with a great insight, just to understand what's going to happen, where we are, and what is going to happen in each one of these period of time. Okay? So as a summary for this part number 3, we can see different keys. The 3.1 is talking about the birth pains again. So, and as I told you, we saw this in the part number 1, and let me show you quite fast. This we saw it here in the words of Shaul when he's talking here. The suddenly destruction comes upon them as a labor pains upon a pregnant woman. So we see this is an important key that is being used all the time throughout the scriptures. So this is the key 1.3, as labor pains upon a pregnant woman. We need to keep this in mind because we will see it repeated and repeated every time throughout the scriptures. So the important question here to answer, and we want you to think about this, what or who will be born? If he's using the analogy of a woman being pregnant, we need to understand what is gonna get born, okay? The key 3.2 is that the Besorah will be proclaimed in all the world, and just then the end will come. So we know that we are instructed and commanded by YaHuWaH that we need to bring the good news to the entire world. It's part of our responsibility. But we will see when we will continue with the study how this will be fulfilled. And we will see that we are not all the only one that we will participate proclaiming the fulfilling this prophecy. We will see it very directly from the scriptures how this is going to be fulfilled, and this is going to be again a second sign, more than a second, a new sign that help us to understand when everything will happen. Okay, the key 3.3 is a sign. Is the darkness of the luminaries. Okay, and we will see this on the Shemaim, and this is going to be something we will see with our own eyes. It's going to help us to understand what's coming next. And we saw also that after this sign, only after this sign, we will see a new sign. And this is the sign of the Ben Adam coming on the Shemaim. This is something also that we will see with our own eyes. An important message, and this is quite important, and we talk about this during this video, that Mashiach himself is telling us that he will appear only after his sign, not before. So if anyone is telling us that the Mashiach is appearing before his sign, we need to be careful, because these are the lie according to the words of YaHuWaH, not according to my words. We just read this in Matthew 24. This is a lie, and we have not to believe them, because he's going to appear only after his sign, not before. And we need to hide ourselves, we need to flee, and we don't have to listen to those ones that are telling us that he's in the desert, he's in the inner room, or he's there, or he's here. We don't have to listen to them. He is going to appear only after his sign, not before. And also, related to the same, the harvest, the gathering of the chosen one is not going to happen before his sign of before his coming. He gave us exactly the sequence of events. The harvest is only going to happen after all of the above has already happened. It's going to happen when all the world will see YaHuWaH coming on the clouds, not before. And we saw it. Let me show you again. Excuse me. The timeline is going to happen just right here, after the sign of the luminaries, after the sign of the Ben Adam, after the entire world see the Ben Adam coming on the clouds. Just then he will send the Malachim to gather all the chosen ones. And we saw as part of his answer to the Talmidim that the chosen one is going to be part of the great distress, that even the false messiahs and the false prophets are going to try to deceive even the chosen ones. And for the sake of the chosen ones, these days of the great distress are going to be shortened. So important to keep all of this in mind, because that's the only way that we are going to be on the light, and we are not going to be deceived by anyone. Okay? So why this is so important? Because, you know, there are many people talking about the rapture, different theories about the rapture. It's important to keep in mind that, at least in the words of YaHuWaH, in Matthew 24, his important prophecy about the end time, he's not talking about anything about the rapture. So far, the scripture is not mentioning anything about the rapture. To the contrary, he's saying that the chosen one are going to be part of the great distress. And he's saying that he's going to gather the chosen one only at the end, when he's coming and he's sending the Malachim with the great trumpet. Keep that in mind. We will touch base on this later in the study, in the series as well. Okay? And also, important to keep this in mind, is YaHuWaH himself, not me, not anybody else. Is YaHuWaH. We read this directly from the scripture. Is he the one telling us that he will appear only after the great distress, not before. Because as I told you, and as we saw it in the scripture, anybody that is telling us that he is appearing before the great distress, he's trying to lead us astray. He's trying to deceive us. These are the words of YaHuWaH, not mine. So we need to understand that he will appear only after the signs of the luminaries, only after the sign of him coming on the clouds of the Shemaim, not before. Okay, so this is the part number 3. In the part number 4, we will continue in the next video. We will analyze the chapter 6 of the book of Revelation, the Sefer Hason. And as I told you in the part number 2 of this series, the book of Revelation is the vision, the revelation that YaHuWaH himself received from YaHuWaH Elohim. And it was YaHuWaH who sent this revelation to his servant Yehohanan. So these are the witness. The book of Revelation is the witness of YaHuWaH. So in the part number 4, we will analyze the chapter 6, and we will continue building this timeline just to have a better understanding of the different sequence of events that's going to happen on the end times. So I hope you enjoy this video. Please watch it again. It's not that long, so study it by yourself, read the scripture, take all the notes, and again, if you have any question, send me the email. I can help you to find the answers. And the most important thing, we need to rely just on YaHuWaH and his word. Not try to understand this with your own ideas. Just read the words like kids. We need to be like kids. We need to read and just to comprehend what is written. Not try to interpret what is written, just to understand what is written. Okay? Understanding the basic things, and with these basic things start building the sequence of events, because this is what we are trying to achieve, to understand the sequence of events. So thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I see you in the part number 4. Shalom.